Hello, my name's Carl. Welcome to the Strawbite Workshop. Today we're going to be taking a look at measuring and marking and some of the tools and techniques that I use here in the workshop. Hello! Before we get started with today's video, I'd like to welcome all of my new subscribers. It's great to have you here. If you're not yet a subscriber, please do consider hitting the subscribe button. Of course, if you like the video, hit the like button as well, and just share these videos amongst your friends. I really appreciate it. It's the easiest way of helping a small channel like mine. So that's that. Let's just get straight into today's video. Okay, so I've been in the workshop now for about 5 months and I really still don't have everything put away where I want it. I don't have enough storage or shelves or hanging space on walls and so on. But what I do have is I have all of my measuring and marking tools in this box, and I thought we'd take a look and show you what I use here in the workshop. Okay, so these are the things I use for marking out. There's a system to this, but we'll come on to that in a moment. Firstly, I just want to draw your attention to the silver Sharpie and the white pencils. These are really handy for marking out dark materials. Pencils for dark wood, Sharpie for non-porous materials such as melamine, plastic, metal and so on. But back to the system. Basically how it works is starting with chalk for rough marking, through to pencils or Sharpies for finish lengths, and then the marking knife. I find this system works pretty well for me over the years. I tend to stick with it. I like the Staedtler Norris pencils. It reminds me of school and they stand out in the workshop. I have just a standard pencil sharpener, much prefer that to mechanical ones. So with chalk, this is really for marking out rough marks on timber, in particular rough sawn timber. Chalk really does work very well. I also use it to mark up high spots in the planer. Pencils are more for marking out finished lengths in materials, in projects. Like I say, the pencils for wood, the Sharpies for non-porous materials, plastics, metals and so on. And then really if I'm marking out for fine joinery, then I will use a marking knife. This one here is a Crown Tools rosewood handle marking knife from Axminster Tools. The advantage of a proper marking knife over something like a craft knife is that the blade is substantially thicker. You can sharpen these blades easily in the same way that you sharpen a plane or a chisel blade on a stone or on abrasive paper. Of course, the Stanley knife is a very useful alternative. Essentially, marking out by using a knife means that you get nice crisp edges to your joints. You can use it on plywood as well to reduce tear out, and there's a very simple method for using a knife for making your marks. You place your knife into the mark that you've made, and then you bring your square up against the blade, and then you can essentially then score the line through the topmost fibres of your workpiece. So of course the final mark that you'll want to make in your workpiece will be for a drill bit, and here I have a auto punch. Essentially you push it hard into your workpiece and it leaves a small dent. This works equally for wood, plastic and metal, and it just gives your drill bit something to rest in as you make your hole. So there we have it. That's my marking tools. Okay, so now we'll move on to measuring, and these are the things I tend to prefer. Here we have a bunch of metal rulers, everything from something which is just under 15 centimeters long, 20 centimeters, 30, and a meter rule. Metal rulers, whether it's aluminium or stainless steel, are perfect for the workshop. As you run a marking knife along them, it's very difficult to damage the edge of the ruler as you're making your mark. They can be cleaned up easily with a little white spirit or acetone if you get pen marks on the rulers themselves. Here I have a engineer's rule in order for me to take measurements off of measured drawings, which is what I do a fair amount if I've done something on the computer and I bring it out to the workshop. So here we have a bunch of tapes. All of these are measured and quite accurate. However, these four are pretty much redundant now, as I tend to use this vice versa tape. It is dual reading and dual printed. This is a metric version. If you're from the US or Canada, you can get imperial versions or versions with both imperial and metric measures. What I like about this is that it's marked out in centimetres on both sides of the tape, and its kind of unique selling point is the fact that there are markings on the rear of the tape. It's an absolutely fantastic tape. It remains rigid over a fairly decent length, and yeah, this is my favourite tape. So digital calipers are incredibly handy around the workshop. My eyesight isn't brilliant. I like the big numbers on this particular caliper. It allows you to measure everything from screws to drill bits, the inside of holes, the depth of holes, and it's an invaluable tool. So I find this pretty accurate, at least to 1/10 of a millimetre or better. And yeah, so this is a well-used instrument within my workshop. So here are the squares that I tend to use. Now, the most obvious square that most people start out with is your sort of standard carpenter's square. And whilst this one is actually pretty well set up and, as far as I can tell, is a perfect right angle, many aren't, and if you're after accurate joinery, then people tend to sort of then switch to engineer's squares. These are relatively inexpensive, but a good engineer's square is invaluable in the workshop for tool setup and accurate marking of joints. I've invested in these Barco squares. These are incredibly good, very accurate, well made. You can set the rule to a particular measurement and it tends to stay there. My very first combination square didn't. So, and I've got two of each size. There are 30 centimetre, 45 centimetre and 15 centimetre squares. The reason for two, it sounds quite extravagant, but it's incredibly useful to have more than one square around the workshop. What I like to do is to set these up at a particular measurement that's critical for a project, lock it off, mark it up with a piece of tape, and then I can always come back and reference the same measurement throughout the entire project. So in the last square, which I may well do a proper review of so that I can really feature all of its various properties and functions, is the square from Tim Sway. This is the metric version and is as rare as you like, because I don't think he has plans to release any more metric squares. From his website, I think you can still get the imperial square. So what I really like about this particular square, and its key feature for me, is that along with the rulers that I have, which are flat, this has no sort of edge to it, lies flat on a piece of work and allows me to mark out really very easily the lines for my project. So as I say, I may do a proper video on this at a later date. So there you have it, a few of the tools that I use in the workshop for measuring, marking and ensuring everything is square. Things like the rulers that I featured, the vice versa tape, the Barco squares. I'll leave links to those in the description. They're affiliated links, so if you click on them and choose to buy, then I get a few pennies back and it helps support the channel, and of course that's at no cost to you. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you've got any comments or you'd like to share what you use for measuring and marking, please do so in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. So for now, cheerio.